Yeah, and Joe, you don't have to go to the darkest corners of the internet anymore to find that argument. A couple of years ago, that would have been a hard case to hear. You just have to turn on mainstream cable news channels to hear that, even last night. And the argument is, okay, a real conservative won last night in Wyoming. This is what they're saying. They threw out a Trump hater who's obsessed with Donald Trump. That's the argument against Liz Cheney, because she's one of the few Republicans who stood up and continues to stand up and say, no, what happened on January 6th, what happened around the 2020 election is un-American. It's not how we do things. It's not about me hating Donald Trump. It's about me trying, at least, to stand up for the Constitution. And that now is the minority view in the Republican Party. That is the extreme in the view of some of these people, that Liz Cheney, who voted with Donald Trump, by the way, as much as anybody in Congress, who has a highest conservative rating as anybody in the Congress, is not a real conservative because she dared to cross Donald Trump, and she paid for it last night. It wasn't a big surprise, but when you see that number up there, it really tells the story of the Republican Party. Harriet Hageman, who won by nearly 40 points last night, 40 points over Liz Cheney, who got 73% of the vote, Joe, last time out. When people really start to dig into who she is and what she believes, talking about Joe Biden being a human trafficker and, of course, defending the election lies around 2020, that's who she is. And the people of Wyoming decided that's what they wanted. Yes, it's a state, Joe, that gave 70% of its vote last time in 2020 to Donald Trump. So not a big surprise that they would back the Trump candidate. But what a flip in a state that Liz Cheney, her father Dick Cheney, have been institutions there for a very long time, losing by nearly 40 points last night because she stood up for the Constitution, because she's standing up to Donald Trump.
Well, and the hatred and the animosity spewed towards Joe Biden from these people I spoke to yesterday. I said to one of them, I said, he's a moderate, like, boring guy from Delaware. Like, you used to do this to AOC, and you used to do this to Bernie Sanders, and you used to do this to Nancy Pelosi, and now Joe Biden is the radical who is destroying them. It's nonsense. The problem is it's dangerous nonsense when they start talking about the FBI being the Gestapo and how the FBI needs to be defunded and how the FBI needs to be wiped out and how we can replace the U.S. government.
Just don't.
That's treasonous talk. And you're right, 5 years ago, that would be considered treasonous talk. Now, it's mainstream Trump talk. We can replace the U.S. government. No, we can't. And Mika,
and no, we won't.
The thing is, if this were actually working for the Republican Party, I could actually, it would be deeply offensive, but you'd say, well, I guess they'd rather destroy the country and win elections, but it's not working for the Republican Party. The Republican Senate candidate in Pennsylvania is losing by 10 points. The Republican Senate candidate in Ohio is losing by 10 points. The Republican Senate candidate in Arizona losing by 10 points in these swing states. We had a poll yesterday that showed in Florida, the Republican Senate candidate in Florida losing by 4 points. And again, that's just one poll, and this is just a snapshot. But everything's going in the wrong direction for Republicans. This the extremism of defunding the FBI, the extremism of attacking law enforcement officers, the extremism of forgiving and looking past people who beat the hell out of cops, and in fact, glorifying them as political prisoners, those people that battered and abused law enforcement officers, cops on January the 6th. Praising them as political prisoners, this is having an impact on Republicans. So again, people could say, "Oh, Joe, you're a rhino." No, I'm not. I'm a lot more conservative than you are if you support Donald Trump. But just if you want Republicans to win elections, this is the wrong way to do it. Donald Trump, let me say it again, the first president since Herbert Hoover to lose the White House, the House of Representatives, and the United States Senate all in one term. And he did it, and he's doing it again to Republicans.
He's got 4 investigations, at least, maybe 5 active investigations, from his personal to his professional to his presidential actions. And I mean, all of them are wrong, really? Okay. So while the Republicans do what they do and say crazy things, conspiratorial things, and lies about the 2020 election, you have the split screen, Joe and Willie, of President Biden signing landmark legislation, President Biden on the world stage handling the situation with Ukraine, reuniting NATO. I mean, it's the most, if you're on the Republican side looking toward the future, it's a pretty pathetic split screen for you. You're jumping around talking about, conspiracy theories and trying to step up for a man who is under FBI investigation, among other things, and has proven himself to be someone who does not tell the truth. I'm only speaking facts here and not getting beyond any story. This is not a man that tells the truth, and this is not a man that cares about his people, and this is not a man who is loyal.
Certainly not loyal to anybody, certainly not loyal to his country, not loyal to the Constitution, not loyal to constitutional norms, not loyal to the rule of law. Willie, though,